A woman in Englewood is mourning the loss of her fiance after he died from toxic mold found inside of their home. Christian Childers has 2 children with Kendra Elliott. Now, during Hurricane Ian, their Southwest Florida home flooded like so many others. Mold grew inside in the house and a pipe then later burst. Christian's health only got worse.
3 months after Hurricane Ian devastated Southwest Florida, one family is facing the tragic loss of a husband and father.
26-year-old Christian Childers died today after mold took over his Englewood home, and his family says later his health. He leaves behind his fiancee and 2 boys.
His fiancee spoke to 10 Tampa Bay Shannon Clough in hopes that his death leads to changes that may save another.
If you've never met Christian Childers, his fiancée Kendra Elliott would describe him as quiet.
I got the spunk and he has the calmness.
Together they raised 2 boys, 9 and 4 years old.
But my children are now growing up without their daddy, okay? And that is not okay. That is not okay. He was a good man.
Christian passed away today. It all started after Hurricane Ian. Their Englewood home flooded like so many. Then mold grew inside of their house.
It just started growing out of control.
Soon after, a pipe burst inside their house. Kendra says that's when the mold got worse, as did Christian's health.
After that, it's like, okay, well, we could pack up and leave real quick, but where do we go? There's no rentals. There's nothing set up.
Kendra says they went to FEMA and the Red Cross for help.
So we went back down to FEMA, and we kept getting denied for housing assistance.
Christmas Eve was the last time she saw her fiancé not in a hospital bed hooked up to dozens of tubes and wires.
He has asthma, so he went into an anaphylactic shock due to the poisoning of the mold, which set him out into cardiac arrest.
Tonight I spoke with Dr. Jayanta Gupta, who's a public health professor at Florida Gulf Coast University. He tells me molds can be toxic, especially for someone with asthma. He says what happens is molds can trigger an asthma attack. If that's left untreated, it could be deadly.
Now Kendra's goal is to use Christian's story to help others.
So many other families going through this right now, and this has to stop.
She wants FEMA to make it easier for those with mold to get assistance.
I want that policy changed. Because according to FEMA and them, my house is still livable because there's a roof intact. Clearly it's not. My fiance just died.
Although Christian was known to be shy, she won't be with this story, hoping to help others avoid this heartache.
Love and prayers to whoever's going through this. Whoever's in the same boat as I am. And hang in there because hopefully help will be on the way soon.
In Englewood, Shannon Clough, 10 Tampa Bay.
We reached out to FEMA to see how they are assisting Christian's family from here and why they couldn't originally get housing. Kendra says she's staying with friends and raising money to get a trailer to live in for her and her 2 boys.
I think and hope that these tests will find some of what's in here, but truthfully, I do not trust that they're going to find everything, because I have a feeling these know what they're doing, and some of the things they have, the reason that they have them is because they can't be detected. Nobody has a way to do it yet, and so if they're further with chemical weapons than we are, it may not pick up on it. So I don't feel overly confident.
You know you were going to be that extensive in testing. I would never doubt that.
I'm not even half started yet. Now, I contacted Mold Inspection Sciences. It's one of the leading mold, allergy, and chemical testing specialists in the United States. I asked them to conduct a thorough inspection of Cheryl's home. Take a look.
I'm a mold inspector with Mold Inspection Sciences. I'll be inspecting Cheryl's house for any mold-like growth that could be affecting her health. So I basically start with the IR and just do a scan of the room. So you can see on my infrared the coloration is different on that spot up there. So that's check 1. And my second check is with a moisture meter, and that's 99% wet right there. So that can indicate that there's mold growth behind the gypsum material. The client said that she was worried about the bathrooms for mold though, so I'm gonna be doing an air sample in there. Even though there's a minute amount of water damage, there could have been previous issues in the bathroom that they patched over. I found this here, some discoloration around this sliding glass door, and there's a little bit of water damage on this baseboard here. And so when I pulled up this rug here, you can see that the tack stripping around the nail beds has been wet before. So I'll be taking a swab of that to see what kind of mold it is. So this canister here is going to test for any VOCs, volatile organic compounds, that Cheryl thinks might be affecting her coming from the vent up there. I'm going to leave this here for 24 hours and we're going to get to the bottom of this.
Well, Ben Weiser is one of the lead inspectors at Mold Inspection Sciences, and he's going to join us now via Skype. Ben, there were 3 areas of the house that you found highly elevated areas of mold spores, correct?
Correct.
The kitchen, the dining room, and the bathroom, is that right?
Yes, in the hallway.
Okay, and now the outside air sample count, normal in that area, both indoor and outdoor, would be about 1,600 spores per cubic inch, right?
Yeah, so we used the outside as a control. That day it was about 1,600 spores per cubic meter.
Okay, and what did you find in the bathroom?
So in that south bathroom there, you know, we found elevated types of Aspergillus penicillium, about 7,260 spores, Chaetomium, Cladosporium, and Stachybotrys.
Okay, and how about the kitchen?
The kitchen, we found about 9,710 Aspergillus spores, and then about 12,500 Cladosporium spores, Stachybotrys, and Chaetomium in there as well.
Okay, and in the dining room, you found 14,000, correct?
Correct, yeah.
All right, and these levels of these spores are potentially dangerous and capable of producing mycotoxins, correct?
Yeah, so Stachybotrys, Chaetomium, Aspergillus, they all produce mycotoxins that can potentially be harmful for people.
Okay, that's interesting and very significant. When we come back, we're going to talk about what this can mean in terms of the impact and how it can relate to some of what's going on here. We'll be right back.
My name is Kerry Gilcrease. I'm a project manager for Mold Inspection Sciences. We're going to inspect Debbie's home from top to bottom. We're going to check around the perimeter for exterior water intrusion issues. We've got some spacing from the house. You can see you've got some clear areas here where water could work its way in. We have some vegetation or plants growing up along the walls. You can get moisture intrusion issues from these plants. We've got a little bit of mold-like growth on some of the shower tiles. As you can see from the light, these materials are in fact wet. What we have here is an impact meter. It checks for molds, any airborne particulates, it tests for allergens, pet dander, skin cells. We have a little mold-like substance back here. Swab the building materials. We are all finished. We've got our indoor air samples as well as our swab samples. Once we get these results back from the lab, then we'll be able to determine if there's any allergens in the air that could be causing Debbie some issues or possibly even some toxic mold.
They came back with some very interesting and significant findings. For example, in the kitchen, they have found 26,000 spores per cubic meter, and this is of Aspergillus and the penicillium, 32 times higher than the outside levels. And the kitchen swab sample shows high levels of toxigenic mold. There's mold present in the kitchen, and that is Chaetomium that's been detected. In your bedroom, there's 2.5 thousand spores per cubic meter of the Aspergillus and the penicillium. And in your bedroom, the toxigenic mold present is 1,825 spores per cubic meter, 140 times higher than outside. Now, you moved in 6 years ago. This has happened to you 4 years ago. Why you and not you? You're there more than he is.
Yeah.
What happens is when Chaetomium Aspergillus and Penicillium are in the air and they're being breathed in at this level, it changes the neurotransmitters in your brain. That changes the way your brain connects and transmits from one part to the other. If you mix that with various medications, then you begin to see very bizarre behavior. So if you have the mold spores and then on top of that you put in medications, you're all of a sudden you're crossing wires up and thinking up in a really bizarre fashion.
You guys email and call us all the time about mold in your apartments and in your homes, and often you tell us that there's really nothing you can do. So we are going to show you some easy things you can do right now to look for the warning signs of mold. I want to introduce you to Jenny Canning. She is with Breathe Easy. And Jenny, we're starting in the bathroom because there are a couple of things to definitely look for in here.
Absolutely, Allison. And really it's very easy. Just a cheap flashlight will allow you to kind of walk through and just look for areas or early warning signs that something's going on. Mold is often related to moisture, so certainly we want to check our moisture issues where our plumbing areas are. This is a really good example. We've certainly had some water getting in behind the shower tiles, and now they're popping away. Is it a mold concern? We don't know that, but certainly it is a red flag that there's potentially a mold concern there. Another area we want to certainly check is where our plumbing is, and this is of course any bathrooms, kitchens. Just be sure that we're not seeing a lot of water staining, water damages, things that may have been covered up, and that would certainly indicate whether or not we need to be concerned about that. There's another section in the kitchen we can have a look at too.
So you mentioned the flashlight, but there are some things that we can buy at a hardware store, and we can look at a lot of this stuff in our homes by ourselves.
Absolutely. I really feel like a moisture meter should be in every homeowner's arsenal. It really is less than a $50 piece of equipment, and it's an early detection. A lot of times if you have a leak, you don't know what got wet. This really will help you determine just how big and bad things really were and whether or not you need to call a professional.
Okay, and so you mentioned the kitchen sink as some place that we need to check.
Exactly, and this one is showing evidence of several repairs. So certainly an area that is not necessarily a mold concern, but we do have a red flag. It's been repaired several times, the cabinet's been wet. This moisture meter will actually come in handy because it'll tell us whether or not we need to be concerned beyond the cabinet sink base itself.
Okay, so just double check some of those things in your home or in your apartment just to see if anything has been fixed or changed.
Absolutely. Anywhere that you have water stains or things starting to show signs of changing color or deteriorating, this moisture meter will let you know whether or not it's moisture related.
And so there are some things that you should look for on the ceiling that you're going to show us too.
Most certainly. This time of year, especially with the rain, we have a lot of roofing issues that are happening. And being summertime, we have AC issues. Of course, a lot of that runs through your attic space. So certainly any indications of staining, changes in color, of texture, of materials, those are all red flags. And again, a moisture meter will come in handy in determining whether or not you need to call a professional.
And you have some of that you can show
We
us.
do have
All
some
right,
of that.
let's go look at that. So Jenny, mold starts with moisture, we know that. So is that what we're looking for then, is moisture in areas that look like that?
Absolutely. It's one of the main ingredients for a mold to form or grow in your home is humidity or actual moisture. So definitely, certainly any staining or indication that moisture, abnormal moisture is happening, those are again early warning signs that you have a potential for a mold situation.
Okay, and that's what we're kind of seeing here.
That is what we're seeing here. They had a bit of a roof leak at one point, so certainly it started with a little bitty stain and then progressed over a few months. They've since had the roof fixed. The staining got no bigger, so we know it was corrected. Really, this didn't get wet enough to cause a mold situation, but as a layman, you wouldn't know that. A moisture meter will certainly tell you if things have dried out in a timely manner, thus avoiding a mold problem. Sometimes they do have to get a little more invasive, and again, that's where a professional will come in handy.
So that's a good thing too, that you can look at that and say it hasn't changed, so maybe the issue isn't as big as it could have been if you left it alone.
Exactly right. And early detection. They noticed right away. They called the roofer right away. Had they let this go the end of the summer, it would be a very different story.
Okay, so you are using your meter that you go and pick up, your moisture meter, and you look at that, but when should they call a professional to come out and take a look at that?
Well, certainly if you're a renter, for example, and you need documentation, that's going to be a very key part. My license is, I've been to court several times. We have certain requirements and standards that we need to follow. We're very ethical. So we report the facts, and certainly putting it into a report format for you may be what you need as a renter to move forward. So documentation is quite often the key, but early detection, because now even if we're finding wet materials, we can get up in that attic space and we can verify, is it a mold concern or not? And then you can have that peace of mind, or maybe again, make an insurance claim and move forward.
Yeah, so you're probably thinking, okay, fine, I see all of this, maybe I have mold in my apartment or in my home. What are the next steps? Do people have to move out of their home? How long does it take to get some of this stuff fixed?
Sure. Well, this is a smaller situation, certainly, but had they let it go and again become a serious mold problem, it means that the molds likely to form because of that amount of moisture are more than likely one of our toxic molds. Okay. So vacate the room, move your stuff out. If you're a renter, obviously you want to notify the powers that be immediately so they can begin to get it addressed. If things aren't getting addressed in a timely manner, for example, and you are a renter, you kind of don't know what to do, again, that documentation is going to be key. Determining what type of mold is present is also going to be key, because that's for your health. Certainly there's a child in this room, so that would allow us to say, okay, safely, let's get everybody out of here, vacate the area, and let's get it properly remediated. Testing really is going to be what holds up in court, though. Keep that in mind.
All right, this was a lot of really good information, and it is simple that we're starting, with simple things like buy a flashlight, buy a moisture meter, and then give you guys a call, because really the quicker you get all this stuff done, the better.
Absolutely. You do have a very small window. Not every leak, determines if you're going to have mold. If you can get things dried out quickly, if you can get water corrected quickly, you can avoid all of those nastiness, that comes with it, insurance claims, etc. It's when we do kind of neglect things, ignore them, let them go, that's when we turn into our very serious issues.
If you have any questions, of course, you can always email us at turnto10@wtsp.com.